D&D number 3, Finding Home in Jesus' Name. Lisa came downstairs in a short, black evening dress. Maddie smiled at her. I know you're probably getting tired of me telling you this, but my, don't you look pretty. I never get tired of anything you have to say, Grams. Oh, what a sweet girl you are. So, tell me, who is it tonight? Marcus Winstead. Oh, yes, Marcus. I haven't seen him in quite some time. Oh, except for when he brought that apple crumb pie over several weeks ago. He brought you a pie? That is nice of him. That is so nice of him. He said he's learning how to cook. His mother passed away. Oh, I guess it's been 8 years now. So sad, so sad. His little sister was only a child when she lost her mother. Marcus was just out of high school, and their father has been gone since they were little. They ran off with his secretary. It's been real hard on them. And I don't have the heart to tell him that the pie needed some work. It tastes like he used salt instead of sugar. Very bitter. I thought I might try to teach him if he really wanted to learn, but I haven't seen him since. And then you came into my life, and I've been so busy. So, anyway, where are you two off to tonight? We're going to dinner and then off to a little opera being sponsored by Middle Georgia College. Opera? Oh, how very fancy. Lisa smiled. Well, not so very. Just some local talent, but it should be entertaining. Her eyes lit up with her next thought. Is there something you would like to do, Grams? I mean, is there something you've always wanted to do, like go to the opera, to the ballet, to a baseball game? What are your dreams? Maddie waved away her suggestions. Oh, Lisa. So, what are you thinking, sweetheart? Are you going to be my magic genie? I could be, Lisa said, the excitement building in her voice. I have extensive resources. Resources? Are you speaking of money? Yes, lots of it. I have real estate, investments, a fat bank account. What are your dreams, Grams? Let me get them for you. Maddie shook her head with a smile. I really have only one dream, and I don't think you could help me with that. I'm too old now. What is it, Grams? She sighed. I wanted to be a cooking queen. A cooking queen? What is a cooking queen? You know, dear, like those people on TV, like Julia Childs used to be. And now, why, there's a whole network on TV devoted to cooking. I always wanted to be like one of them. Lisa put her arms around the small woman. Oh, Grams, that is a wonderful dream. Maddie smiled. I just love to cook, and I would love to teach others to cook. It doesn't have to be on TV. Actually, I'd prefer to do it in a smaller group. And of course, I love to cook for people, like my own restaurant kind of thing. She gave a sigh. I can't tell you how it thrills me to have someone feel pleasure when they eat something I've cooked. That sounds silly, I know. It doesn't sound silly a bit, Grams. Everyone wants to have what they create be appreciated. I know I tell you after each meal how delicious it is, but really, I've been around. I've eaten in many a five-star restaurant, and your cooking is some of the best I've ever had. Well, thank you, dear. It makes me happy to know you feel that way. Lisa turned at a knock on the door. That must be Marcus. We'll talk about this later. She gave Maddie a big hug. I promise you, Grams, I will figure out a way to give you your dream. Lisa opened the door, but it was Chaz instead of Marcus. Oh, hi. I didn't expect you. Chaz frowned. You didn't expect me. You don't have to expect me. What, am I supposed to make an appointment now? Don't be silly, dear. You know you're welcome anytime. Come in, Maddie said. Chaz eyed Lisa as she closed the door. She was gorgeous in the short black dress with her hair piled up on top of her head. A few strands fell here and there, probably placed strategically, he thought. She wore black hose and spiky black heels, and it took him a moment to pull his eyes away from her long, muscular legs. Well now, don't you look nice, he said, trying to sound casual. Thanks, Lisa said, wondering why she suddenly felt nervous and awkward. Going out? Again? Her chin rose slightly. Yes, I have a date. His lips pressed together. Would it be too presumptuous of me to ask with whom? She twisted her hands together nervously and shrugged. No, of course not. It's no big secret. Marcus and I are going to dinner. I see. Oh, and to the opera, Maddie put in. Imagine. Yes, just imagine, Chaz said softly. Lisa's mind moved to her and Chaz in the classroom at the church several days earlier. If they hadn't been interrupted, who knows what would have led. And now here she is going out with another man. It must make her seem like a real floozy, but she just wanted to get to know people in her hometown. What was wrong with her having a little fun? She'd been out with Troy, learning to ride a horse. That had been an adventure. She'd spent Sunday with Joe, Shirley, and Megan. She'd been shopping with Cindy and Megan. She was simply having some fun. She gazed boldly back at Chaz. It's not a professional opera. It's sponsored by the college. So I guess this is bad timing on my part. Well, Marcus will be here any minute. Did you need something? His face darkened. Need something? No, I don't need anything. I brought you this. His hand came out from behind his back, and he held a tiny gray kitten. Oh, a kitten! Oh, look, Grams, a tiny little kitten. It's so small. Can I hold it? He handed her the animal, shoving his hands into his pockets. It was just the reaction he'd been hoping for. He had wanted to please her and wanted to make her smile. She was making silly little sounds, cooing and gooing at the kitten, and finally she looked up. You brought it for me? I can have it? Yes, you can have it. The cat that lives in our stable had kittens about 6 weeks ago. This one was the runt. It seemed to need some extra care, so I brought it for you. Is it a boy or a girl? It's a girl. He took the cat and turned it over and showed her how to tell the sex. Oh, thank you, Chaz, she purred. Grams, do you mind if I keep the kitten? Of course not, dear. You know, I had a cat not too long ago, but when I went into the hospital, I suppose she ran away to fend for herself. I haven't seen her since. This one will do nicely. What are you going to name it? Chaz asked, pleased by her reaction to his gift. Let me see. Her thoughts were interrupted by a knock on the door. Oh, that must be Marcus. She handed the kitten to Grams. Will you take care of her while I'm gone? Of course, dear. Chaz watched as she smoothed her hair and opened the door and invited Marcus in. Marcus nodded at Chaz. Chaz? Marcus? Let me just grab my purse, Lisa said, running up the stairs. Chaz watched Marcus watch Lisa's backside as she moved up the steps and felt a real storm growing inside him. Marcus was 2 years younger than him. In school, he'd been a troublemaker, to say the least. He was now a dangerous man, violent and volatile, a bad combination, though you'd never know it to look at him. He came across as smooth and sophisticated. Well, he may have Lisa fooled, but Chaz knew him. He knew he had a dark side. Back when they were kids, Marcus had tried to mess with Cindy. She'd begged Chaz not to tell, and he'd honored his sister's wishes, but had beat the heck out of Marcus. And Chaz had refused to apologize and suffered through 2 months of restriction, but it had been worth it. Keeping his thoughts to himself, Chaz watched silently as Lisa came back down and her and Marcus said their goodbyes and took their leave. As he watched them drive away in Marcus's navy blue BMW, Maddie took his hand. She'll be okay. Chaz glanced down at her and squeezed her plump hand. You're a smart lady, Miss Maddie. She smiled. Yes, dear, I am. New scene. Jody, you are the best, Lisa said to the woman who'd been her assistant at Golden Hotels for all of 3 days. They'd talked so many times on the phone now they'd become close, even though long distance, friends. I know. You should have seen his face when he opened the door and the police made him stand aside while I packed your stuff. He wanted to kill me, I could tell. I tried hard not to look smug. Really? No. Lisa burst out laughing. And you were able to get my old car with no problem? None whatsoever, but he was pretty mad. Wonderful, Lisa said with glee, not feeling a bit ashamed for enjoying someone else's pain. So, answer me this. Is he the new vice president? Okay, hold on to your socks. Lou did not recommend him to the board, and they had a huge fight about it. She didn't recommend him? I can't believe it. Lisa began to giggle. This is just too good. So, who did she recommend? Oh, some assistant who came in from the competition. He's giving her all the inside information on terrace, hotels, and courtyard. So he's in and Glenn is out. Well, not all the way out. She's letting him stay in his same position. Well, sometimes there is justice. Okay, so on to the important question. Now that you've had a few days to mull it over, what do you think of my idea? Are you ready for this? I'm on pins and needles. John and I are coming to Georgia. Oh my goodness, you are kidding me. I really expected you to give me a polite turn down. Well, like I said, we've been talking for a long time about doing something real, not just working for other people. We both feel like this opportunity was meant to be, and we can't wait to get there and get started. We prayed, and we feel strong about this. This is so awesome. When will you give your notice to Lou? Well, actually, I won't have to. When Glenn told her I helped you to retrieve your belongings, she had me fired. Lisa gasped. Oh, no, Jody, I am so sorry. I'm not. But how can she do that? I mean, there are laws she has to follow. You could sue the company. Well, the reason on the pink slip was inability to perform duties required. Lisa let go of a few colorful words. That's pure trash. It's okay, Lisa. Don't get all worked up. It's not okay. It is. Listen to me. There are times when you simply have to let things go. She's not worth my time, and I was going to quit anyway, right? So let her ruin my mood. So why let her ruin my mood when I have so many wonderful plans and things to do? I could probably take her and Golden Hotels to court, but I don't want to focus on some battle against a former employer. I want to focus on a new relationship with my new partner, and I want God on my side, and suing someone doesn't feel like a heavenly pursuit. Lisa blew out a breath. I guess when you put it that way, I shouldn't let it bother me. I mean, if you're not bothered, why should I be? Exactly. Anyway, it was pretty funny the day I left. She wanted me out immediately. She had security escort me. They even checked my bag. Well, that doesn't surprise me a bit. Lou likes to get in a final stab if she can. I guess that's why she was so mad when I laughed at her. She knew she wasn't hurting me in any way. So let's change the subject. What did your grandmother say? So much has been going on, but I haven't come out and told her about my idea yet. I have been hinting, though, easing her into it. Well, I am so excited. You and me, partners in our very own business venture, Jody exclaimed. This is going to be a blast, Lisa said. Total, Jody agreed. I just want to tell you one more thing. All the conversations we've been having, all your talk about God and his plan for you, it's got me thinking too. I think I want to know this God. Ah, Lisa, you just got me choked up. I will be happy to teach you all about him. I'm looking forward to it. New scene. Hello there, cutie pie, Lisa purred softly at her new pet. The kitten purred right back at her. And how are you this beautiful Saturday morning? The kitten answered by playfully pawing at one of Lisa's red curls. Chaz is taking me to buy a new car today, so you'll have to be a good girl and don't get into mischief while I'm gone. And make sure you use the litter box, okay? Are you hungry? Huh? Is my little Dixie girl hungry? Lisa rose slowly from bed, rubbing her nose against the kittens. She hadn't been downstairs in a robe since that first day when she'd been surprised by Chaz's appearance. But rather than make Dixie wait for her food while Lisa dressed, she grabbed her robe and headed down. Grams was already cooking up a storm. What's all this? Lisa asked after Grams had offered her the usual morning greeting. Some of the ladies and I are taking a few meals over to the Johnsons. Melody had her baby yesterday, and with 3 other children to feed, we thought we'd help out. Lisa shook her head. I don't know why I keep being amazed at how everyone takes care of everyone else around here. Well, that's what it's all about, Lisa. Family and friends. They take care of each other. Lisa put a small saucer of cream down for Dixie and sprinkled in a few morsels of dry food. Well, I'd better go up and get dressed. Chaz and I are leaving around 9. I hope Dixie won't get underfoot. Oh, you don't worry about a thing, Lisa. Have fun buying your car. When Lisa came back downstairs, Chaz was standing at the kitchen counter, gobbling down a blueberry muffin and sharing some with Dixie. She hadn't seen him in several days, and the impact of his nearness, as usual, was almost overwhelming. "Hi," she said softly. He looked up, feeling lightheaded at what he saw. An angel, all in white except the bright red crowning glory that was taken up at the sides and left hanging long down her back. She wore a long, white, gauzy skirt paired with a low-cut peasant blouse and white sandals. She bent down to scoop up the kitten. He couldn't keep his eyes off of her. He cleared his throat. "Ready to go?" he asked. "Ready," she answered with a smile. Her mouth formed a cute pout. "Now, you behave and don't get underfoot," she said to Dixie as she set her down. She leaned down and kissed Maddie's cheek. "Don't work too hard, Grams." "Don't you worry about me," she said, and shooed them off. The day couldn't have been nicer, Chaz thought as they drove along the highway. The sun shone brightly, not a cloud in the radiant blue sky, and he finally had Lisa to himself. He hadn't realized when he'd taken her to the church social that he'd essentially be setting her up on a dozen dates. He hadn't really minded, except for her excursion with Marcus. Besides, he'd had a million things to do on the ranch. With his father's back injury, Chaz was having to take on his share of the work. And even though Josh had been helping out with the horses in the mornings, Chaz still had fences to run, feed to buy, a water line to repair. Add in daily chores, and the work he'd promised Miss Mattie he'd take care of, and it was easy to see why he'd been strapped. But today was his. Today, he was taking a gorgeous girl out to shop for a car, and he was taking pleasure in the fact that it may take a very long time. "So how was your week?" he asked. "Wonderful. It's been nonstop. I can't believe how my life has changed in just a few short weeks." "And so, you're happy?" "Oh, yes, so very happy. Finding home. Finding my father. Finding an entire family I never knew I had. I feel like I'm just beginning to know who I am." "And what have you begun to know?" She closed her eyes and leaned her head against the headrest. "I'm not someone who is shallow and hard and who lacks feelings or emotions. I'm someone who fell in love with a tiny older lady within just a few minutes. Someone who fought tooth and nail for what's mine or what I thought to be mine. Someone who had the guts to make a life-changing decision, to leave my job, my fiancé, and all that I knew and was comfortable with, and hook up with two strange men who escorted me all the way to Georgia." "Hold it. Two strange men?" She laughed and told him the story of the truck stop. "Bill dropped me off safe and sound at the exit leading to Pine Forest, and I'm sure if he'd known I'd get attacked by killer cows, he would have stayed with me to the end." Chaz shook his head. "Killer cows. They were more afraid of you than you were of them. They've got you fooled. Believe me, that's not how it went down." Chaz grinned. "So, do you think they may clandestinely try to off me one day and make their escape?" "I wouldn't turn my back on them if I were you." He chuckled. It was a very male sound that had Lisa looking him over while he drove. "He puts Glenn to shame," she thought. "This man should be on one of those beefcake calendars. That blonde hair, not long, but not too short. Scraggly," she guessed, in a I don't have time to worry about hairstyles kind of way. Yet clean, shiny, combed away from his face. He, too, like Glenn, had a lock that fell over one eye, only Glenn's was placed there strategically and Chaz's fell there errantly. Her eyes drifted down to his broad chest and followed to his arms, where he'd rolled up his shirt sleeves, showing his ripped forearms. She'd noticed his hands before, large and rough, yet they'd handled her little kitten gently enough, and they'd touched her in a way no man ever had. Not that Glenn had never touched her, but never in that sure, masculine way Chaz had about him, never in a way to make her tremble. "A penny for your thoughts." She smiled, knowing she couldn't very well tell him what she'd been thinking. I was just thinking about Dixie." "Well, she seems to be thriving already." "I already love her so much." "What made you pick Dixie for a name?" "I'm embracing my southern roots. Dixie." "Oh, I see." "Stop!" Chaz looked around, startled. "What's wrong?" "Stop the car. Go back. Did you see that?" "No, what?" That truck back there, in that parking lot back there, it had a for sale sign on it. So? Surely you don't. Surely I do. Please, Chaz, go back. He looked for a place to turn around. I was thinking we'd go into, like a car dealership. I want to look at that truck. They turned around and headed back and pulled into a small strip shopping center with several cars and trucks parked up near the street with for sale signs on the windshields. That one, Lisa said, pointing to a bright red and white Chevy truck. Chaz pulled up. You're kidding. Why would you think that? I like it, don't you? I mean, it's okay. I don't picture you in a truck. Well, what do you picture me in? He bit his tongue. Well, I don't know, in something a little classier than a used 2010 Chevy truck. She shrugged off his comment. It's $5,000. Do you know anything about cars? He ruffled. Yeah, I do. So you'll know if this is a good deal once we drive it, right? Yeah, I'll know. Okay then. She took out her phone and started punching in the number on the sign. He sighed. If this is what she wants, well, it's her business. They just wait and talk to the owner. He'd be darned if he was going to let her get ripped off by some guy taking advantage of a female. And while they waited, they walked around the vehicle, looking it over. The truck was well taken care of, essentially white with red panels, lots of bright chrome, new tires and rims. Really nice rims, he had to admit. Lisa got more and more excited as she pictured herself driving around in her new truck. She looked down the road and frowned and pulled sunglasses from her purse. Chaz couldn't take his eyes from her. She looked at him. What? You are an amazing creature. She blushed and leaned against the hood, and he stepped in front of her. I don't know what's wrong with me. Every little thing you do makes me want to touch you. She drew in a breath. His words, spoken so simply, stirred her. Everything I do? What did I just do? You put on those sunglasses. He braced his arms on either side of her. She took the sunglasses off. There. Is that better? He leaned close. No. Now I can see those gorgeous green eyes. She smiled. You're going to kiss me again, aren't you? I am. And there's nothing I can say to stop you? I wouldn't think so. Do you want to stop me? She shook her head. I don't think so. I'm having the same problem as you. You turned me into a loose woman. Well, I can't say that I'm sorry to hear that. He leaned forward and took. She leaned forward and offered. Get a room, some kid yelled out their car window as they drove by. And Chaz chuckled. Great idea. A car pulled in next to Chaz's Explorer, windows down, radio blasting. A tall, lanky kid with dark hair jumped out and came forward. You the ones who called? Yes, Lisa said. Are you the owner? Yes, ma'am. Name's Jason. He held his hand out to her. She shook it. Jason, Chaz offered his hand. So, why are you selling your truck? Jason shook his head. Well, I hate to let her go, but the kid's car seat won't work in it. Not supposed to have a kid in the front seat, you know. You have a baby? Lisa asked. Yep, a boy. Named him Jason after me. Jesse's parents weren't really happy about that. They figured me and Jess will be done within a year, but they don't know me. I'll do right by my kid. Looks like you took pretty good care of your truck. Oh, I love this truck. Engine's brand new. Did it myself. Runs great. Just finished reworking the transmission right before Jason was born. New tires, new rims. Kept up the maintenance for the time I've had it. Of course, I bought it used myself. Can't guarantee what came before me, but it drives well. You want to take it for a spin? Love to, Lisa said. An hour or so later, Lisa stood next to her new truck, title in hand. New to her, anyway. Chaz shook Jason's hand and waved goodbye, and when he turned, Lisa was grinning from ear to ear. He smiled back at her. So, you did it. I did. I can't believe you not only paid his full asking price, but gave him an extra $500. She shrugged. Well, he'll need a lot more than that to take care of his son. She rubbed her hand over the side of the truck. It's great, isn't it? Yes, it actually is a great deal. Still, you buying a used Chevy truck, it surprises me. I told you earlier, I'm embracing my southern roots. To me, a Chevy truck fits right in. Or am I stereotyping? He gave a short laugh. You're stereotyping somewhat, but I'll try not to be insulted. I'm not ashamed of being a Southerner, and I've traveled all over the states and all over the world, and I like the South just fine, though I have to say not all Southerners have pickup trucks. Do you? Well, yes. I use it when I'm working the ranch, carrying feed or tools, or hauling wood or bushels of pears. Still, not every Southerner lives on a farm or ranch, and not every Southerner has a pickup, hunts deer, and chews tobacco. Okay, okay, I get the picture. Do you? Do I what? Hunt deer and chew tobacco? She nodded her head. No, chewing tobacco disgusts me, and I don't have a lot of time to go off hunting. But you would if you had time? Well, let me put it this way. I don't believe in hunting for sport. Killing for sport doesn't settle well with me. Hunting for food is different. We eat what we kill. And if we didn't hunt, the deer population would grow out of control, and then they'd starve to death. He nodded, smiled, and changed the subject. So what's next? Well, I suppose we're done for the day, unless you'd like to do something else. It's early yet. You want to have some fun? Like what? Lisa asked. Let me see. In keeping with your theme, what is another southern country type thing we could do on a gorgeous Saturday? He touched a figure to his lips. How about a picnic? That sounds wonderful, she said, clapping her hands together, but we didn't bring anything with us. No problem. We'll hit the local Wally World and get anything we need. New scene. Lisa stretched out on the newly purchased quilt and stared up through the branches of the tree they lay under. Oh, I overdid it. If I eat one more crumb, I think I may pop. Chaz stretched out beside her, arranging himself so that their heads lay side by side, their feet at opposite ends. So tell me about you, Chaz, Lisa said sleepily. There's not much to tell. Of course there is. You're always asking me questions, so now I want to know about you. He looked up into the afternoon sky, sighing. I'm the oldest of four. I know that. By the way, it was so nice to meet your mom and dad at the dance. I didn't even get to say goodbye. Well, Mom was on call, and they ended up having to leave early. We're used to it. Your brother Tyson seemed pretty nice. He's a good guy. And that Cindy is quite a character. And the baby, Stephanie, she's 17, right? Right, senior in high school. Very serious, wants to follow in Mom's footsteps. She thinks she's 21. Well, most females are born thinking that, she said with a laugh. But we still haven't talked about you. You said you were in the military? I went in at 20, I got out at 24. And you were a medic? A corpsman. Marines are corpsmen, Army has medics. His mind flashed back to the battlefields and to the blood and to the death. She turned over and braced on her forearms so that her face hovered just above his. Chaz? He looked into her eyes. Yes. I was a medic. I'd planned to go to medical school. Mom wasn't too thrilled, and I wanted to drop out of school and sign up to go to Iraq. Of course, she worried about me getting hurt or worse, but she also knew I would be confronting death daily. She worried about how I'd handle that, but she understood my need to try to help. She watched his face. There was pain there. I'm sorry. I guess you really don't want to talk about it. No, I really don't. Well, let me see if I can make it all better. How about a Spider-Man kiss? What's that? Well, did you see the movie, the first one? Yes. Then you'll remember this. She leaned down and kissed him. When she lifted her head, he was smiling. Got it. She touched his face and used her thumbs to smooth the crease between his brows, stroked her fingers lightly down his cheeks and across his mouth. He found it to be incredibly moving, just those light, gentle touches. She was smiling. He could tell she was thinking about kissing him again, and he wanted her to with every fiber of his being. He couldn't believe the feelings this girl could make him feel. No, not a girl. She was all woman. He cherished the need she awakened in him, hadn't felt it for years. He'd forgotten how good and bad it could feel at the same time. He wanted her, that much was obvious. Was that all it was? If he took her for a tumble, would it get her out of his system? Or would he want more? Would she give more? Was he falling in love with her? What else would explain his constantly thinking of her or of his need to be near her and to touch her? Enough of this. He took her head in his hands and brought her to him, nipping at her full lower lip before he delved in. She sighed softly. Hands still on either side of her face, he pushed her back so he could see her when he said his next words. I want you, Lisa. I know, she whispered, then pulled away, sitting up. Come swing me. He sat up, watching her as she walked to the swings. They played on the swings and the monkey bars and the carousel, and several kids joined Lisa on the carousel while Chaz spun them around. Lisa held one small boy in her lap while the mother stood nearby watching with a grateful smile. Whee! She crooned at that little boy. And if Chaz hadn't been in love with her already, he knew now that he was. As they played, the crowd of children grew. It seemed they gravitated toward Lisa, Chaz thought. She's like the Pied Piper, leading them around, playing tag, laughing, so beautiful as she floated among them, her white skirt billowing around her in the breeze. She knelt down to speak with one little girl. He couldn't hear what the child was saying, but Lisa smiled and touched the little girl's nose, and the little girl's face glowed like a ray of sunshine on a flower. And the memories hit him so hard he staggered. Nausea swept over him, his eyes moistened. He turned away, trying to shake the images that popped up in his brain like a slideshow he couldn't stop. Julie laughing, Julie playing in the sandbox, Julie helping her mommy water flowers, Julie with chocolate birthday cake all over her face. He stumbled and braced himself on a nearby tree. Dear Lord God, would it ever stop? He slid down and sat, his knees drawn up, his arms resting on them. He didn't notice when Lisa sat down beside him, had no idea how long she'd been there when she rubbed her hand over his back. Chaz, are you okay? He swallowed hard, trying to find his voice. I'm fine. Is the heat getting to you? Maybe. She watched his face and knew there was more to it than that, but also knew he wasn't one to talk about what bothered him. She chewed on her lip, trying to figure him out. You don't like kids? He stood abruptly. No way could he have this discussion with her. He drew a deep breath to help him get control. Of course I like kids. He held his hand out to her. Come on, it's after 5. Where are we going? She asked, hoping he wouldn't say home. He pulled her up close to him. We're going to continue indoctrinating you into your Southern heritage. How are we going to do that? We're going to grab some beer and head down to Wilson's Lake. The Wilsons? They live down about 5 miles east of Pine Forest. Old couple. They have a fairly large lake on their property, and for the last 50 years or more, they've shared it with the community. They don't mind letting us youngsters, as they like to put it, camp out and do some fishing or just watch the stars. What do you say, Red? You want to do some stargazing with me? I think I'd like that just fine. And that is the end of chapter 7.